Welcome to Wednesday night at Living Word Family Church. This is These Final Days Ministries. I'm Pastor Ryan Speakman, serving under my favorite pastor in the whole world, Pastor Maureen Collins. I'm supposed to clap. My regulars know. Welcome to everybody here. I've got actually quite a few new people. We won't take the time for introductions. We want to get right to your presentation. But I do want to introduce my very good friend, David Bedein. A lot of you know his son, Noam, who's visited us here at least 4 times, maybe 5. And last time Noam was here, of course, he brought his lovely wife and baby. And is there another one on the way?
Yes, absolutely. We've ordered another one through eBay.
You get the best deal. So there's
actually 2. My daughter's also pregnant, so we have 2 coming through eBay.
Which daughter? Rivka or which daughter?
Leora.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, tell her congratulations, please. So 2 new Sabras on the way.
That's right.
Yes, awesome. Okay, congratulations. Mazel tov, mazel tov. That's the right word. So, okay, I could say all sorts of nice things about you, but I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and let's just go ahead and dive in, okay?
Thank you very much. Well, the only controversy is whether it's early in the morning or late at night, but we'll leave it like that. I have I'm here at the press conference room at the press center in Jerusalem. This is where a lot of the decisions are made. A lot of the press conferences happen with the ministers of the government of Israel. And right now we've transformed it into a studio because we're making our newest film, which is about UNRWA in Jerusalem. And we've been filming the UNRWA schools, United Nations Relief and Works Agency schools here in Jerusalem, where the children learn the value of conquering Israel and killing Jews. It's the first time in Jewish history, basically, you had a school system based on teaching children the art of murdering Jews, which is part of the shakaruni in terms of what we're showing you. When you go onto my website, this is the first item that you see on our website, Palestinian Authority textbooks, The Attitude to Jews, Israel, and Peace. And we bought all of the school books. A senior official of the United States State Department told me I was a liar, that what we've been finding in terms of the school system is not true. So that inspired us to buy all 364 school books being taught. And the children are basically learning the Arab children under the new Palestinian Authority, learning the concept of making war against Israel as a value and killing Jews as a value. So you may say, well, that's a Nazi system. No, the Nazis never put that in their school books. They did wipe out 6 million Jews. It was understood what they were supposed to do, but the concept of putting it in actually the school books was not there. Now, I always like to bring the actual school books with me when I discuss with people, and what you have here is one lesson after another. This is a seemingly innocuous literature book. In the middle of the book, you've got a very important lesson with this very good-looking young Palestinian woman. Now, who is she? Her name is Dalal al-Mughrabi, and in 1978 she landed her...
David, hold it up. We can't see the picture that you're referring to.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. She landed her little boat with 5 terrorists north of Tel Aviv, and it was a bright spring morning, and she murdered a photographer who was there, the niece of Senator Ribicoff of Connecticut, and then proceeded to commandeer a bus with 38 people and murder 38 people on the bus. Anyway, and there's a whole lesson plan for the children on how they have to grow up and be like Dalal al-Mughrabi. And it's in Arabic, but we have it excerpted in this report that leads our website. Okay, seeing is believing. It's not hard to believe. It's not easy to believe, and since you can communicate, one of the most important things when you hear these kind of stories is not to keep it to yourselves, but the power of the pen, to let your representative in Congress, your senator in Congress, the U.S. government know about this, that this is not acceptable, that there should be a school system. Now, what's the connection with the United States government? We brought our experts who translate these books to Washington, to the Capitol Hill, and we appeared in Congress no less than 8 times over a period of, I would say, about 8 years, 9 years, and we were able to convince both sides of the aisle in the House and the Senate that this is not acceptable, and the Senate Near East Subcommittee commissioned a report about these school books, a very important, what they call GAO report, Government Accounting Office report. And the report was about to come out when the State Department, which controls foreign policy, vetoed the issuance of the report. Now, we like to say that a problem is a problem when someone makes it into a problem. So the 20 or so people who are here in front of me right now, if you make this into a problem with Congress, I sent the link to the story, the story which this appeared in the Jerusalem Post, this headline, sweeping incitement under the rug. The State Department has not just, you don't know about this problem because we say that a problem is a problem when someone makes it into a problem. So if the 20 or so people here in front of me were to raise questions about the state's government hides this curriculum from the people, I think it would be very, very important. I'm be very, very clear in terms of the seriousness of this. Now, behind me, you sometimes can't relate to Israel without relating to our neighborhood. Okay. Anyway, I'm sitting behind the maps here to put things in perspective. Uh, Today, Israel's war is with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, the largest Arab country. All the other Arab countries that declared war on Israel in 1948 basically have stopped the war. Jordan, Egypt have a peace treaty with Israel. Syria and Lebanon have an armistice with Israel, and Saudi Arabia is at war with Israel. Now, the other nation, of course, at war with Israel is over here with Iran. Turkey doesn't like Israel, but it tolerates Israel. And of course, we put things in perspective by having our own map here to make us think that we're larger than we are. So what I started to mention was that the problem we're facing, the most serious problem, is what's going on inside Israel. The fact that a Palestinian Authority entity was created, which is in a permanent state of war with Israel. So whereas the nations around Israel are not at war with Israel, within Israel, we've got a problem, a very, very serious problem. And a good portion of Israel's foreign policy is made based on what the United States thinks should be. And the U.S. government has had, ever since 1948, when Israel was created, has had a tremendous influence on what happens over here. So that's a little bit of an introduction in terms of what we're up against. You'll see on my website, IsraelBehindTheNews.com, lecture I gave last week about the Saudi threat to Israel. You don't hear much about the Saudi threat to Israel because they're charming people and they make it look like they're for peace, but that's not the case at all.
Unless your name is Khashoggi.
I'm sorry?
Unless your name is Khashoggi. I'm talking about the journalists that they often
that's
Turkey.
That's a cutting edge story, as you know.
Yes.
We'll leave it like that. Anyway, so perhaps we can start with questions that you may have about the reality of Israel. When I came to Israel, which was 48 and a half years ago, I came in with a theme called Israel is Real. I was at the University of Wisconsin at the time, and Israel was already a controversial issue for many, many people. And the concept of looking at the reality of Israel was what I felt to be the most important thing. And my dream was to start a little center, which I did here in Jerusalem, to make things a little bit more real, more understanding for people, and to be able to explore the reality. Now, first of all, is my audio okay now?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah. We can hear you great.
That's fine. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we are. This is the what was the press center in Jerusalem, and as I mentioned before, this is the This is the press briefing room that the government uses for the foreign correspondents.
And
So,
David, how many years have you been at this? I know that you've been the director there since 2005, right?
No. Since 1987.
Oh, 87, yeah. Is that when you started Israel Behind the News, or?
That's where I started Israel Resource News Agency. I started actually in July 1st, 1987, and have been going ever since.
So you had told me
I was going to do it for a year, but it didn't work out. It's a long year.
that's like I came to Havasu on vacation for 2 weeks. That was 21 years ago. So, I feel you. So when President Trump took office, I believe you told me that your team met with one of his representatives over there to talk about this issue.
That's correct. Quite by accident, the month before President Trump took office, there was a conference here of legislators from around the world, and I sat next to a young lady who I didn't know she was President Trump's representative at the conference because I came 10 minutes late. And she asked me what I do. I started talking about the school books and the films that we make about Palestinian education. And that's fine. And then I asked someone, I said, I heard that someone is here from President Trump's office. They say, well, you're sitting next to her. Oh, okay. That's the way it worked. And I asked, she gave me her business card, which had on her local cell phone from Washington. I called that number and said, would you like me to bring you all the school books for you to bring back? And they said, of course. So then I had my own session with her. And she went back and presented President Trump with the new school books of the Palestinian Authority. And President Trump basically went ballistic when he saw it. He said, "How could this possibly be?" I mean, these pictures of people who've carried out acts of first-degree murder being praised in the books, and praising and also picturing all kinds of schools named for killers, sports teams named for killers, etc. This is unprecedented. The Nazis never did that. The Nazis were bad enough, but they never went around praising the people who carried out mass murders. So this is a brand new school system. The United States has been the prime funder of that school system, and they had put out, when the first school books came out from the Palestinian Authority, which was August 1st, 2000, we were the first ones to get them because we met with Yasser Arafat, the head of the PLO, and said, when are you going to speak words of peace in Arabic? And he said, you'll have to see our school books, which is exactly what we did. So we made an issue out of it, and we use the expression that a problem is a problem when someone makes it into a problem. We did, but the propagandists on the other side were saying, oh, they're peaceful, you can depend on us, everything's okay. Their school system, their school books for peace. Well, maybe rest in peace, but that's about it. So I've been doing this ever since. Overcoming all the hurdles of the mainstream media, all the hurdles of the politically correct people who don't want to see reality. I always say that we just completed our last 4 year study of the Palestinian school books, and they're all for war in every possible way. And they're now that thanks to the website, they're there. And I think I mentioned that a senior official of the United States State Department told me to my face that I was a liar, that doesn't exist. I said, thank you for the inspiration. We're going to get all the books. And when President Trump came into office, he fired that gentleman. Now we have a situation where the people around President Trump are advising him not to deal with education. But there's 20 American citizens in front of me who can say, excuse me, but how can you have education without peace education? And now, why would I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to talk to 20 American residents? Why? Why is this important? Why is it important to me? I'll tell you why. I'm 68 years old. I don't know how that happened. I think I'm 22, but that's okay. And one of my colleagues in Washington, who I grew up with, has been working in the U.S. Congress for the last 42 years. He was working in the House Foreign Relations Committee as a senior official there. Anyway, I asked him, how does Congress work? Tell me. And he said one thing. He says, if we get 10 letters, 10 reasonable letters individually written to us from around the United States, we know it's serious and we go into an emergency meeting. 10 reasonable letters. And that's what I'm trying to say, that if the people here, you look at our material, Just if you have website, if you have now that people have smartphones, and you look at these reports, which are all very carefully documented. This report is a let's see, it's a 38-page report. But you'll see going down on the website, you'll see we have several reports which are 200 and 300 pages, and they're very, very well documented. And you say, why are you not raising this in the peace process? Why are you going? Why is the United States government dealing with the PLO and pushing Israel, continuing to push Israel into a peace deal with the PLO, which is at war with Israel? Well, they have very good public relations. 40 years ago, 30 in 1988, that was 30 years ago. Excuse me. President Reagan made the mistake of recognizing the PLO, and we asked his senior advisor, Dr. Alan Keyes, why that was. He said, "Well, the Saudis pushed us. Saudi Arabia pushed the United States, actually dictated the United States its policy with the threat that if they did not recognize the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization, then they would just pull their investments out of the U.S." So it was under duress, and that duress has continued since 1988. What President Reagan did, President Reagan, who seemingly liked Israel, but the issue is the dictates from Saudi Arabia, and they have amazing power.
Hey, David.
So
Sorry to interrupt you. I did pass out the document that you sent me today, so everybody here. And if you didn't get a copy, I think I made 30 copies, which turned out not to be enough. But see me after class. I'll get a copy to you. But it lets everyone here know how to contact our Congress people. Now you made a statement a few minutes ago, and I want you to expand on this because I'm not sure everybody caught it. You said that these textbooks that are in Arabic, that are in United Nations schools, UNRWA, right, United Nations Relief and Works Agency, that are teaching kindergartners to hate Israel and to murder Israeli Jews. I mean, I've seen your material. That the United States has been the biggest funder of these textbooks. Can you explain that? Just so everybody understands what you mean by that.
Until President Trump cut off the funding to UNRWA
On September 1st,
which we had something to do with because we got him the school books to see what was there. Their propaganda said that didn't exist, but we deal with reality, not with fantasy. We got the school books to them, but 54% of the UNRWA budget it goes to education, and the United States government until recently gave $364 million without checking what was in there. We have letters which we got from USAID that we do not examine the books. That's very nice. I have it in writing that they do not examine the books. And here, so the United States was the prime funder of a $1.2 billion budget. Now Saudi Arabia has stepped in with $731 million per annum, so they're taking up the slack. But the United States continues to push the idea that there should be negotiation without any consideration of the books. As a matter of fact, we sent someone last week to meet with the senior State Department people who are based here, and they said, now we've examined the books, they're terrible. They're filled with incitement. So if they're filled with incitement and they're filled with war with Israel, why are you pushing Israel into this peace process with an entity at war with Israel? Simple question. And I want to say that if I ever found a school book produced by the PLO or an Arab country for peace, we'd publicize it tomorrow morning. But we don't deal with fantasy.
So what are you expecting? We all know that President Trump is supposed to unveil his peace plan. He and Jared Kushner have been working on this for 2 years, right? What are you expecting in this peace plan?
It depends on you. It depends on you. It depends on your input. If the president gets lots of input from around the United States, from regular people, that you should not be pushing Israel into a negotiating process, into a surrender process with an entity at war with you, then we can expect a very, very good response that he'll get off our back, that the United States will get off Israel's back. But it all depends on American people. I can't emphasize enough. I come from the U.S., as you can tell from my English. I grew up in Philadelphia, but I'm telling you that your input is extremely important. I put it on my website, how to best contact Congress, personal letters. And first of all, I begin with the Congress people from Arizona, ask them if they would be willing to have a briefing with our people. In the same way I'm giving you a briefing, I can give them briefings. What I do when we do a more formal briefing, I have three people around me who speak Arabic. One is an Arab, the other two have PhDs in Arabic, and they ask questions back and forth in terms of what's there, because the picture of our research, of our main researcher is here, Dr. Arnaud Gross, who has his doctorate in Islamic studies from Princeton University. So your encouragement, and we've been working with with a congressman from Doug. It's late at night. The congressman from Colorado, but the very very important to know that this is something that your Congress people need to know. There, one of the things that the PLO did was to develop a whole series of disinformation. Basically, that's now that I'm 68 years old, I say that instead of lying, but a lying system to try to say that they've created a peace process, which doesn't exist. I think the younger generation is responding to this discussion very well.
Yeah, we have a young one back there. She's cheering you on. She likes what you're saying.
But anyway, so again, everything depends on input. And by the way, if you have op-ed editors in your local newspapers and you can connect them to us, that's fine. If you have radio stations, that's also good. But it has to be from below, from the grassroots, because you have to understand that this is not a popular thing to be talking about. When you talk about truth from the land of Israel, it's not popular at all. Not at all. And it's very, very difficult. I spoke to a group of Christian students last night, and it was the first group of students I've spoken to in maybe 4 months, because we're not allowed to speak to groups, you understand? There is a kibosh, there's a stoppage of the flow of information to American students about what's going on here.
Now, what do you mean you're not allowed? Who stops you from speaking to?
Who doesn't stop? In other words, there's only one Pastor Ryan who contacts us, but that's it. We offer these discussions all over the place, to pastors, to rabbis, to ministers, anyone who would like to go into the factual stuff of what's going on. But there is an era that we live in, an era which would have made George Orwell very, very proud. That of people not wanting to ask what's really happening here. That's what we have to deal with.
And you said before, so yeah. So
by the way, that was Congressman Doug Lamborn. My head wasn't working a minute ago. Congressman Doug Lamborn in Colorado has taken a leadership role in exposing all this stuff.
And you were saying before that so we're a small group in here, but you're saying you don't get a lot of small groups that are even interested to hear what you guys have to say about this.
It's 20 people. If you have a pen and an envelope, and you write to a Congress, people who are influential, in other words, people in the U.S. Congress, and say this is not acceptable, that has an effect. And if there's other groups, of course, that we can address either personally or by Skype, and this is a marvelous invention, the fact that we can interface this way, and you can see us as questions. And again, when we appear in Congress, I bring my whole staff. I've sent you, I think, our master plan. And what that's all about, which is to bring experts all over the place and to continue to stress what's really going on over here. So maybe after this discussion, you'll just go onto our site and start picking out the videos of the schools, because it's not enough to talk about the school books, but the schools themselves.
So now that President Trump, I mean, for years the United States has been the like you said, the main funder. I looked up the numbers. I think we were financing 30% of UNRWA's operations for years, decades maybe. Now
right.
The President Trump has stopped that. Now listen, and I think that we should emphasize this point. The next president, maybe they'll be in the other political party, and they may resume the funding to UNRWA. In the meantime, France and Germany and Saudi Arabia picked up the slack. But in the meantime, what should we emphasize?
Well, you should emphasize one thing and one thing only. How can the United States government, which knows what's going on, which knows what's being taught, push Israel into a situation of being forced to sit down with the PLO and negotiate away its sovereignty, its integrity, and pieces of, let alone pieces of territory, when they are in very openly and clearly still at war with Israel? That's the question. PLO stands for the Palestine Liberation Organization. There's a whole generation that doesn't even know that. The Arab League it's people say, well, you have to make peace with someone. Okay, when there's an unconditional surrender. Now, the Arab League made war with Israel in 1948 to destroy Israel. I pointed out on the map a moment ago the nations that invaded Israel. Well, Jordan and Egypt made peace. Syria and Lebanon made an armistice, and the Saudis continue to fuel everything, fuel the flames of war.
And Iran, of course. And Iran also, of course. Yeah.
Well, Iraq has been neutralized, thank God.
No, Iran.
Oh, Iran, yes. Well, that's a very serious issue which we're going to face in the near future. We're not sure where things are going on in Iran, but we do know that it's people say, well, the enemy of your enemy is your friend. The enemy of your enemy remains your enemy. That's reality. Very important to know. And while the United States has, thank God, pulled out its funding, Germany, the UK, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar took its place. So there was no cutback to UNRWA. So when you open up our videos at Israel, our website, by the way, is israelbehindthenews.com. And when you look up our website on the lower right side, you'll see the videos, the films, and that's how you can see some credibility to what we're talking about. Because just hearing from me, from yours truly, middle of the night, coming from Israel, they say maybe David has a fantasy problem. So look at it. I mean, that's why that's the advantage of using technology. Now, my father, may he rest in peace, used to say, well, when Skype and fax and internet and phone is going to be cheap, then people understand Israel better. But the opposite has happened. The opposite has happened. The understanding that I had speaking with church and synagogue groups 48 years ago was much deeper, much more serious. But today, everyone seems to know what's going on. Now, I wrote a book, The Genesis of the Palestinian Authority, which maybe you can get it through Amazon. Just a 573-page documented book about how the PLO continues to be at war with Israel. However, my friend who wrote an article about dialoguing with Arabs and with his Arab neighbors, he's on the bestseller list, and there's no ounce of truth there in terms of where things are going in terms of peace, because Arabs who are nice people say nice things. That doesn't mean they bring about peace. Regimes make peace, not people.
So you're it sounds like you're not really excited about Trump and Kushner's peace plan coming up. What's the solution? What would you like to see happen?
What's the solution is an end to the war, unconditional surrender. The Arab League made war on Israel in 1948, and it continues to this day. The PLO was created by the Arab League in order to incite the Arabs. It was created in 1964, before the 1967 war, to get all of Israel. Every member with the PLO, the solution has to be one solution, and that is their surrender. We have to hear them say the words, "We surrender. We are no longer at war to destroy the state of Israel."
Is that going to happen realistically? I mean, do you really see that happening?
It's up to us. It's up to the people here, the people there, people everywhere. If you don't ask, you don't get. A problem is a problem when someone makes it into a problem. I can just tell you that the more you demand it, the more people will listen. That's the issue.
Yeah, go and clap. Shall
I mean, how do you win wars? You win
You're
wars
getting
when
applause
people
for that.
surrender. That's over. People say, well, you have to make peace with your enemies. Yes, after you defeat them. We have a strong army. My two boys have been in the army. My four girls are in national service. My wife was in the army. I was in the army. That's what we have here. And there are people who come over from the U.S. sometimes that volunteer in the Israeli army. Now we don't depend only on the army, not by might, but not by spirit, but not by might, but by the Spirit, says the Lord. We say by Spirit also, and by believing that God is over us and that we're fighting a fight which is beyond military.
Amen. We agree with that. It's a spiritual war. Yeah, and we know who wins at the end. Hey, last week I babbled for a whole half hour to my class about the U.S. withdrawal from Syria. So I warned you. I wanted to get your opinion because we want to hear from someone who.
Let me hear. I want you to hear my perspective on that. My perspective on the U.S. pulling out of Syria is that it was a very smart move to play, because if the American government, if the American troops are in Syria, and Syria is going to explode again, then there will be American troops who will be killed in the line of fire, and the Jews will be blamed. If the people who replace the American troops are Saudi troops, and there's Arabs who are dying in the process, that will not affect American public opinion. But given the level of anti-Semitism these days, it doesn't need a lot to set off the flames, to spark the flames of anti-Semitism. So I think getting American troops out of there is a smart move to play.
Excellent. Okay, good. That's what I told my class, so I got that one right. Yay. What a relief. Yeah. I was nervous. And besides that, if the U.S. wants to take action, I mean, Trump has hit Assad twice, hit Syria twice since he took office, and neither time was from our troops up in the north. It was ships in the Mediterranean. We also have a huge Air Force base in Iraq, right over the border. And then I heard that we're actually keeping one tiny group of American soldiers down at a crossing like in southeastern Syria, the border with Iraq there, to try to stem the tide of Iran coming in. And then didn't we, I just heard this the other day, or about a week ago, didn't the U.S. open a little miniature Air Force base in the Negev desert in Israel about a year ago? Did you hear about this?
Well, actually, the United States has been assisting Israel in its construction of Air Force bases for many, many years. The late Senator Jacob Javits called Israel America's largest non-floating aircraft carrier. That's part of what we have here.
Yeah. Happy to support you. So, hey, does anyone here have a question? Any questions for David? Or okay, Sharon.
He keeps mentioning the PLO, but what about Hezbollah?
They're all connected. Israel has, look, let's just be very clear. Let me get up and show a couple. Can you see me okay?
Yes.
Israel faces the PLO, which controls a good portion now of Judea Samaria in the middle. Israel faces Hamas over here in Gaza. Israel faces Israeli Arab villages, which are anti-Israel, and Hezbollah up here in the north. So you have a multiple enemies, multiple small enemies, and they're all allied, all coordinated, and that's besides Iran. So we don't know what would unleash the powder keg, but we do know is that the UNRWA camps, the UNRWA refugee camps, which are spread throughout the area here, there's 59 of them. That's a separate discussion, but they are many of them are armed to the hilt. And if you see our latest film, Terror of Return, you'll see 100,000 youngsters been recruited in Gaza to invade Israel and take the villages back that they lost in 48. So they all are aligned, but they try to the PLO. The best way to say it is the PLO believes in the two-stage solution, not the two-state solution. In other words, we'll take a little bit at a time and keep going. And that's a different tact than what Hamas or Hezbollah will say. And their tactic, unfortunately, can work sometimes because people can get involved with illusions. There was a great philosopher named Edmund Burke who once said, "I'd rather be an idealist without illusions than to be an illusionist without peace. Without idealist without illusions, than to be an illusionist without peace, without ideals." And I heard that in a lecture I heard in May 1967 from Robert Kennedy when he was a senator from New York, and I was in high school. But I can tell you that we have to deal with not illusions, but with our ideals and stay with them.
Yeah. And your neighbor's goals are not peace with Israel, but the elimination of Israel. Just
No,
so.
it's not. It's no the obliteration of Israel, and that's not something that people understand. How can an entity be for the obliteration, and they're recognized by 100 more than 100 countries in the world as a legitimate entity, because they have different aspects to it. I take reporters around Israel. That's what I've been doing since 1987, and I have many stories that are counterintuitive to what you think. One time, I had an appointment with the one of the heads of the PLO, actually here in Jerusalem, where they're not supposed to be. I brought a major correspondent, and I explained to them the two sides of the PLO. On the one hand, they want to obliterate Israel. On the other hand, they have businesses where they sell products to Israel. So he asked the PLO about this seeming contradiction, and he said to him, the PLO guy said to him in a very matter of fact fashion, "You don't understand. First, we do business with them, and then we kill them." And it was not something out of a comedy routine. It was very serious about that. But they don't see any problem with that. I see a problem with it. See, let me be very clear about something. Pastor Ryan often asks, "What moves you, David?" I said, "Look, when you have 6 children, 7 grandchildren, 2 on the way, etc., you are obligated to defend those children. And there's an entity out there which will actually give awards to anyone who will murder a Jew." And I think that what you have to do, I'm back in my generation, we had something called teach-ins. Having a teach-in on the reality of the PLO is extremely important. The fact it's the first entity ever to make awards for someone who will murder a Jew. This morning, the person who had carried out a terrorist attack, an Arab, who carried out a terror attack last month, murdering 3 young soldiers, and also a a woman who was pregnant and shot at her, and she had the baby, and the baby died. And he's going to be given an award, a financial award, which comes out of the treasure chest that the PLO has from foreign countries. I would encourage you all to look at the State Department, the Justice Department list of foreign terrorist organizations, FTOs, and you'll see that many of the constituents of the PLO are on that list. Well, getting the American government to enforce that law is a tough thing, because these people take acting lessons. It's as if they went through Universal Studios, the PLO and their friends, and it's just not the case. The PLO, there's a great book I recommend by a guy named Shai Ben Tekoa called Phantom Nation, about the invention of the fake PLO people, Palestinian people, and how they use their fake methods based on what they learned from Algeria, Vietnam, and Cuba. But that's all part of the story.
Who else has a question for David? Question, comment? Don't be shy. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
I was wondering, over there in Israel, is there any dual, like people here, we got a lot of people that like Israel, a lot of people don't like Israel. In Israel, are there people that are confused over there as to what the PLO is doing?
Not only confused, totally in La La Land. They have no idea what's going on. You have fake news here in Israel, like you have fake news everywhere. There's a whole generation of young people who've grown up not knowing what the PLO is. If I say it's the Palestine Liberation Organization, whose purpose is to obliterate Israel, most people look at me and ask me what kind of drugs I'm on, what's your problem? Because they say most people here, it's worse than being confused, totally misinformed, and that's a very serious issue. I wish it was the other. And by the way, I'm often commissioned. When I started this business of looking at the school books, it was when the PLO signed a peace deal with Israel. So I said, okay, that's when I first started looking at the Palestinian school system. And when we discovered that they created a war system, we were pushed out of the media, pushed out completely. When's the last time you saw an editorial in any newspaper anywhere in Israel or the United States condemning their education system? That's why if any of you have newspapers and you want to be in touch with your editor, or if you have a TV station which you want to hear another point of view, other data, we're happy to provide it for them. But there's been a wall of silence, of disinformation, which has stopped us from doing it. But I'm telling you, if any of you will read your local newspaper, and you can put us in touch with your op-ed editor, we'll get them what they need to see, not based on opinion, but based on fact. The fact speaks for itself.
And you said it's getting worse, not better, even in Israel.
Oh, much worse, because you see, people pay attention to the economy, and people think that if you do business with people, that they're at peace with you. That's the illusion, and that's the lie.
Any other questions for David? I got 40 people in here. Mark.
Are any of you surprised by what I'm telling you today?
Actually, not in my class.
No.
I'm pretty grim when I teach, so yeah. This is what I teach. Plus, I learn from you and your kid. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, how are your border walls holding up?
The border walls. That's a little bit of an issue here in the States at the moment. The border walls.
Well, we have a problem with the walls in Gaza because you can fire missiles over those walls. So that's the problem. That's the problem we're facing in Gaza. The fences that Israel has built up has done a marvelous job to reduce petty crime. It has reduced petty crime. However, in terms of the war situation, it's gotten worse because you can fire over fences, fire over wars. So we have a different situation here than you have, let's say, with Mexico.
John.
Oh, go ahead, John.
May I ask an off-topic, lighter question?
Yeah, watch out for John. Go ahead.
Did he say he was raised in Philadelphia?
I grew up in Philadelphia. That's correct.
And you moved here from Wisconsin?
That's right. I was at the University of Wisconsin, and I decided to come home.
Does that make you a cheesehead still?
I'm not gonna say I'm one of the Jews for cheeses. That's.
I was going to say that's a kip on your head, not cheese, but your joke was way better. I'm not going to say it.
Listen, if we take ourselves too seriously, there's no hope for it. No hope for us. I'm on the ground floor apartment and ground floor office, so can't even jump out the window.
Hey, are you happy to have the U.S. Embassy as your neighbor there in Jerusalem now? Was that a good move?
No.
Why?
No, and I'll tell you, I'm going to surprise you.
Okay.
Because it was I'm one of the only people who writes about the fake embassy move. They moved the embassy without declaring Israeli sovereignty over Jerusalem.
That's true. I noticed that.
Israel does not. So it was a fake move. I wrote about this in 1995. I was in the halls of the United States Congress when the embassy relocation rule, and you can find it on my website, was watered down so that there's no sovereignty and no exclusivity. So when Israel wants to build a new neighborhood in Jerusalem, they have to ask permission from the United States. It is ridiculous. It is an insult. I'm the only one who's going to tell you the truth about this. Everyone else will go, they'll be so happy about the move of the American embassy. It's watered down legislation.
Wow.
Fake news.
Wow.
I know that
Okay.
I make a lot of enemies with this, but you can't even fire something at me because I'm sitting here.
No. We like to hear the truth here, whatever it is. So.
That's right. Not everybody likes to hear the truth. That's okay.
Does my class like to hear the truth? Yes. That's why we're here. So.
Right, that's
Okay.
good.
Have another question here, Barbara.
Okay, as long as we're on the embassy moves, other countries have also agreed to move. Some have, same thing as far as
So I say, so what? The fact that they're not recognizing, I'm sorry to burst the bubble out of everybody, but the fact that they are opening embassies in Jerusalem and Israel has been, please, sir, can we build a new neighborhood in Jerusalem? Ridiculous. We should have the pride to stand up and say, excuse me, this is our land, this is our city, this is our capital, and no one's still going to interfere. But that's what's happening now. And understand that letters to the president, which are written personally, and best to write to Sarah Sanders, that wonderful spokeswoman. I know her father very well, Pastor Huckabee. I think this is a very, very important right. Sarah Sanders' letters at the White House, how you want the United States government to recognize the sovereignty of Jerusalem, not the symbolism of moving in. Incidentally, one of our projects is to bring over our staffers to personally meet Congress and to personally show the films. That costs money, and we need sponsors to do it, because you have to understand what I have to break through here. I have to break through a whole wall of disinformation. So Congressman Doug, the congressman from Colorado, I just said his name a minute ago, and again, it's late at night. You can tell that a little bit, but anyway. But if your Congress people would agree to meet with us, we'll bring our experts on the terrorist infiltration of a charitable activity coming to the Palestinians. We'll have people who present them with the terror takeover of UNRWA, with the school books, and the truth will be heard. We like to use the expression that Israel is real.
David, I know you guys need a lot of funding for what you're trying to accomplish over there, and this isn't bragging because it's a small amount. But Pam and I, for at least a year or so, have been giving a monthly donation to David's organization. So I'm going to put my class on the spot here and invite some of you or all of you, if you feel it in your heart, David's organization. You can hear what they're up against there. They could use regular monthly support. So if you can, budget, $10 to help them, $25, $10,000 a month, right?
$1 a day. If you can send $1 a day, which is what Pastor Ryan does, $1 a day, $365 a year, and that way, if we could get a substantive amount of people giving what Pastor Ryan has done, has been to begin basically an example for everyone to emulate. If we ask for thousands of dollars, we'll get that maybe from a corporation. Who knows? But we have to start small. And if everyone here were to send us the equivalent of $1 a day, you have no idea what we can do with that money. When we started out our new website in 1997, people said, "What do you need to publicize it?" I said, "I need $3,000." And I asked for 3,000 people to give me $1, and that's how we did it. And how did we do it? We had a front page ad in the New York Times, which goes all over the country, three times over a period of 3 weeks, and the whole world saw IsraelBehindTheNews.com. And we did that for $1,000 an ad, and about approximately 3,000 people did send us small amounts of money. But that's what we're talking about.
So say your website address again, so everybody can go there and hit the donate button.
IsraelBehindTheNews.com, and there is a button there for donations. But that's how we can make things real.
Yeah, excellent. My class usually ends about 15 minutes ago, but can't cut this off too soon. But I for 15 minutes I've been resisting this, but I cannot. I'm going to kick myself if I don't ask this. The United States, it's such a important point you brought up. I'm so glad that you're shedding light on the embassy move and giving us a new perspective on it. I really appreciate that. All of us do. I'm assuming that the hot button topic, why the U.S. chickened out on that one point, if I could use that term, is the Temple Mount, Al-Aqsa Mosque. No?
Nothing having to do with it. It was just back in the United States in 1948 declared that Jerusalem is not part of Israel. It has to be an international zone. They invented a term called corporate something I can't think. I'm sorry. It's late at night.
Well, that goes
But
back
they
to
do.
Sykes-Picot. We've been talking about that in here.
Yeah, but they basically declared in 48 that Jerusalem is not part of Israel, and corpus separatum. That's the expression they used. Corpus separatum, and that became a one of the rubrics of American foreign policy, as if they were going to keep the Arabs happy with it, and that was not changed, and that's the problem.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for David or?
Now you can correspond with me through my website, IsraelBehindTheNews.com. My email is there, as my fax is there, my phone number is there, and it's fine. I even have an American phone number which I've given to American line, which I've given to Ryan. Any of you can use it. 215-240-4919, and it gets to my office here in Jerusalem.
And for an
I
Israeli,
can
you
tell
speak
you
English
that-
really well. So for an Israeli, you speak English really well. You have a slight
Well,
Philadelphia
it's very good
accent, but
I want you to know that I know English very good. Yes.
there you go.
Anyway, okay. Again, if you take yourself too seriously in this business, forget about it.
Did you have to wake up to speak to us, or did you stay up late?
So what I did was I took a nap in my office.
Oh, okay. I do that every day. Do it every day. So,
That's how I'm doing it.
if no one has any other questions, maybe we'll go ahead and let David get to bed, get back to your couch.
Well, actually, I'm going to go home, and I have my morning Talmud class, which is at 6:30 in the morning. Then we pray, and then I go swimming. Then I come back here. So there's a lot to be done. Lot to be done this morning, and that's in the middle of everything else that we do.
I told my group David never sleeps, so that's my impression.
Well, the guardian of Israel doesn't sleep. Whatever, it's okay. There's a lot to do. I'm motivated to this. When I see my children as you come in, I'm not going to move the laptop into the office. I'm on my office. On my window, I have the pictures of 1,330 people murdered by the PLO, one at a time. And that keeps me motivated to do what I'm doing. And I encourage you to take pictures out of the paper of the people murdered. And when it's not only murdered, but remember, every murderer is honored by the PLO, and there's no excuse for it. It's just knocked out of the media. A murder takes place, and they give an award to the killer and to his family for the rest of their lives. No excuse for it, and there's no excuse for the United States government to dictate to Israel that it should be having a peace process with people like this.
Yeah. What you're doing is extremely important, and we really appreciate it, David. And we appreciate you joining us this evening or your morning.
Well, I like to say the expression I use is "let my people know."
That's good.
People do not know. We're in a world of superficiality. People do not know the basics of what's going on. I haven't given up on selling my book, but I put my book, Genesis of the Palestinian Authority, on a PDF on my website, IsraelBehindTheNews.com. You can take a look at it, go through it. It's facts and facts and facts based on our news coverage of the area here, and we do have allies. When I see Sarah Sanders, who I knew her as a little girl when Pastor Huckabee used to come visit Israel, when I see that woman stand up for Israel and stand up for integrity, I know that there's hope, because the truth will make you free. And I can just tell you, there's enough people in the United States of America who understand the integrity of Israel and the integrity of what it means to work with us, and we very much appreciate the American attitude to Israel. Not always the American government attitude, but the American people attitude. So, so if you can help us raise our presence in the United States, in the media, and in the public domain. Pastor Speaksman is basically the leader in this right now. He doesn't know that he is, but he is.
Well, good. Thank you. Yeah, need another title.
A lot of credit for for putting yourself on the line and becoming a member. That $25 a month is, again, it translates into real money for us. When we want to send a TV crew out to film a day in an Arab school, that's $1,500. Well, okay, it's worth it. but we have to get a lot of people sending in $25, $30 to meet that. If one day we find a corporation or a major foundation to support us, that's fine, but I'm not going to wait for that day.
So we love
Anyway,
you, and we support what you're doing, and we love Israel, and just really appreciate your time tonight, David. So
Well,
thanks for staying.
thank you very much. You're an example. You're an example to everybody else, and I thank you very, very much. I understand you have a lot of sabras in Arizona.
Yes, that means cactus. It also means little kid in Hebrew. Right.
Anyway, but it's okay. Well, thank you very much. I say good morning, good night.
Yeah,
And
God
that's
bless
the
you,
way
my
it
friend.
is.
God bless you. Everybody say shalom, shalom, shalom. Toda rabah. And so give our love to the family, and congratulations again on the 2 impending Bedein Sabras. Mazel
Well, I'll
tov.
tell you something. God has a way of giving us answers, and that's one of the ways when we make more babies here and more children. Just one in terms of my own high school class. I went to the Jewish day school in Philadelphia, and the 4 of us who were 34 students in our class, and the 4 of us who came to Israel, each of us have 6 children,
Oh wow.
and the other people in the class, we just had a class reunion. Not too many children, not too many grandchildren, and we're going to have the vast majority. The 4 of us, we're going to have the vast majority of descendants from that class because we have the will to go on.
Yeah.
And the next time, I'll bring my wife on, and she's even more powerful than I am.
Oh, Sarah's
and she just
amazing.
doesn't like that.
She reminds me of my wife. She's a tough cookie. I love Sarah. Yeah. Tell her we
Yeah,
said
well,
hello.
Thank you again. And by the way, when are you all going to be my guest the guest in our living room in Efrat?
Oh, well, that's probably an open invitation to everybody. You know where I'm going next. So it'll be about a year before I'm there. You remember where I'm going? I'm going to Beirut
My
in
wife
2
makes-
months.
My wife is
Did I
not only
tell you
a tough cookie; she makes great cookies.
Yes, she does. And a great Shabbat dinner and all that stuff. Yes,
Thank you.
exactly. Okay.
And she,
Okay, God bless you, my friend. Lahitro.
thank you very much. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom. Talk soon. Isn't that great? How would you rate the quality of this call? Let's keep them working on it. We'll give it 4 stars. Yeah, we'll do the rest out there. So, okay. Yeah, wasn't that fantastic, you guys? Wasn't that cool? And I'm amazed at the turnout. I really appreciate this. This lets David know that they're not alone over there, that there's actually people in America that care about Israel. And so anyways, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to close in prayer real quick, and then I'll dismiss you. Thank you for staying late.